what do you mean when we talk about support for democracy? Is that like when someone tells me they're happy with what the Biden administration has done, or they look back favorably on the Trump presidency, or is it something else?
Yeah, it is something else. It's something more general. So, instead of if we think of it like a game of sports, it's not the players or the teams. It's the rules of the game, and so it's democracy itself. It's the rules that structure the competition between parties, between candidates. Whether people are in favor of democracy, whether they favor free competition between parties, between candidates, freedom of speech, and all the other rights that buttress that, or whether maybe they're ambivalent or perhaps even sort of nostalgic for authoritarianism or outright favoring some kind of authoritarian leader. So that's really what support for democracy is. It's a broader thing about the rules of the game itself.
Okay, so I can be unhappy with what an administration is doing, but still support democracy, still support the game that we're all playing together.
Absolutely. There's long been a distinction between two kinds of support. The one form of support is for the people in power, the government of the day, and political scientists call that specific support. So and the idea is, your specific support may go up and down. That's part of democracy. Maybe you favor the government, maybe you don't. That's normal. Some people are going to be unhappy. But there's another kind of support, and this is where it's a support for democracy fits in. Mm-hmm. It's a form of diffuse support. So it is support for the system itself, and it's thought that the system generally doesn't change, or maybe it changes slowly, and that is the rules of democracy, the rules that structure the competition, the rules that determine who gets voted in as the government. So generally, we think that it's okay if people have low specific support. That will rise and fall. That's part of democracy. But we generally think it's good that people have high diffuse support. So support for the system needs to be high. And if it isn't, then, well, there may be trouble.
Yeah, let's say more about that. So on this show, we've had discussions with different people about democratic backsliding, on voting restrictions that limit democracy, on personal parties and how that contributes to democratic decline. You're talking about something different, public support. Why is it important to a healthy democracy, a consolidated democracy, that people support it?
Well, I guess there's long been an assumption among political thinkers, not just political scientists, but going back really a long time. I mean, you can certainly trace it back to Montesquieu in the Middle Ages about a link between culture and democracy. So the way in which people think about politics and the kind of system they have, whether it's democratic or some other form of government. So this has long been an assumption that people have had about politics. I guess, when it comes to the modern era, there's been a concern that if democracy doesn't enjoy a large majority of support amongst the public, it will create a window of opportunity for authoritarian actors, maybe elected autocrats, who will dismantle some checks and balances because, of course, it helps them stay in power. And so over time, you would see sort of democratic rights and institutions erode, and democracy itself would cease to exist.
Yeah, so my sense of that is that if people have low support for democracy, they're less likely to, say, punish a political elite who takes undemocratic actions, or they're unlikely to be disturbed by violations of democratic norms. And is that a way of thinking about it?
I think that's certainly one way it could play out. You could see it as an electoral action where people will vote against a candidate who is proposing undemocratic actions, or has, if it was an incumbent who has attacked democracy. So that's certainly one way it could play out. You might also see it in terms of collective action, protest. And we do, there's been plenty of examples of democracy protests. So, I'm from South Africa, and the anti-apartheid movement, a big part of that was a protest for more democratic rights and more political equality. The Philippines in the 1980s. So there's been a lot of examples of strong democracy protests. So there what we have is a slightly different dynamic where it's not people taking action to protect an existing democracy. They're taking action to demand a democracy be installed where one maybe doesn't exist already. So you could potentially have two different processes. And we think, traditionally support for democracy was thought more to operate as a bulwark, a way of protecting democracy. But potentially it could also be a way of allowing democracies to emerge or forcing them to emerge.
Interesting. And I mean, my sense is that polarization sort of increases the risks of a low level of democratic support. So, right, there's some experiments certainly in American politics where the most polarized people, so people on the most extreme ends of polarization, will be the most tolerant of anti-democratic actions because the prospects of the other side winning are just too much for them to take, in effect.
Yes, absolutely. So I'd say one of the most important developments in this line of research are these experiments by Milan Svolik and others. And I think they've really shown that. So I guess traditionally we thought that people's attitudes to democracy were maybe independent of their attitudes to policy, their ideology, their partisanship. But what Svolik showed with his experiments is that maybe there's, people trade off between these dimensions, and they can say, well, if the candidate who supports my vision is elected, do I really mind if they're a bit of an autocrat? Maybe that they'll win the next election as well. So I think it really made us question, what is support for democracy and whether it can handle an environment where polarization is in play, because that would really exacerbate that trade-off between the democratic rights and maybe your own personal interests in getting someone from your ideological tribe in office.